This is RPMMO Radio,
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
a podcast all about role-playing and MMORPGs.
I like what you got. Good job.
With your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, Sid, Jazz, Strophe, and Kishmas.
Everybody off. We need to go on a quick adventure.
Hello, role players. This is RPMMO Radio, our 40th episode. It's not the years, it's the mileage. I, of course, am one of your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, and with me, as always, is Jazz, Sib, Strophe, and eventually the Kishmas. So,
Eventually, the Kishmas.
eventually, he's always having to do that thing where we require money to continue to play MMOs. I guess there's bills and stuff in there too, but I like to think that we all only work in order to play online games. Because literally that's probably, I'd say, a good 75% of the reason I go in every day. The other 25% is adulting, and another 5% is, I guess, we have kids that need food and water.
Yeah.
And
State
honestly,
frowns unless you take care of them.
yeah,
So.
and 10% of that would also be because of the dogs, which is probably 5% more than the kids.
You know, when you frown, people usually frown back at you. That's all I gotta say.
That's probably because you farted in public.
There is
Oh
that.
my God.
Right. I mean, obviously, why wouldn't everybody around you frown
I'm
when
not-
you just belted
I'm not
one
saying
out?
Another word.
So,
That's the quote. Went over like a lead fart
that's right. In church.
in church.
Nothing like a mixed metaphor.
You know what Confucius say?
No.
Man
no.
who fought in church, a sitting on pew.
Oh,
You're more than
That
one way.
was bad.
Words of wisdom.
You're-
I've got a couple
You're
of
a
those.
pew.
So appreciate you guys bearing with us. We didn't have an episode last week. It was mostly because nobody wanted to be here. Oh,
That's
also
not
because we had no
true.
power.
I
for
was sitting-
whatever reason, about an hour and a half before the show, we lost power for no reason. No storms, nice weather, just blink. Oh, yeah, and when I say blink, I mean it literally blinked several times, and we had to make sure that nothing got damaged, and it came on just after a little while after we would usually start the show.
Start the show.
That's right.
Wait. Straight from fart to shart.
Yeah.
Wear the sharks.
Well, I mean, you can't have one shart without the fart, so I'm sure that's a saying somewhere on a T-shirt, probably. And,
Or it is now.
and if it's not, it will be soon. But yeah, I didn't want to. We probably could have done it, but I didn't want a chance with the now having a reason for power to go out for us to do the show, and then it cut out right in the middle of it, because not doing it and just not having any quality at all is better than doing it and having piss poor quality because of
I agree.
reasons out of my control, and that would have pissed me off. I was bummed. That would have pissed me off, because we don't want to give you guys more of a shitty show, at least audibly.
You got this. You got this, babe. Just keep
Audio
going.
wise.
You said
Let's go with
audio
the
shark.
Elmer Fudd way. Or is it Porky Pig way? Bad. So, yeah, we apologize for that, but it's some of these times of internet, power, both things that we require to do the show, since we are not all even in the same state, or because of Kishmish, the same time zone. So we appreciate you guys being chill with that. We do, of course, want to, as always, give a special thanks to all our Patreon donors at our Raid Boss level, That Guy Lazza and to Truth Bob, and all of our Patreon donors. We appreciate each and every one of you. If you, too, would like to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/RPMMO Radio and join us there. Even $1 every little bit, if you just want to let us know, like, hey, I like the show, which also saying things like Scribble MMO said, like, hey, I like the show, also works awesome too, because we appreciate that.
And if you do donate, we won't send the sharts after you.
That's right. For every person that donates, you won't get a mysterious
We'll just-
package in the mail
We'll just think of it like a tip jar.
that smells like dookie. And with that, of course, I actually want to thank our 2 new followers, speaking of which, Scribble MMO and Dial Hole 1.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's DYL, so it's different. And of course,
Thank you for following us.
we are of a live show, so you can go to rpmradio.com/Discord, join our Discord server, chat with us during the week. You can also, during the show, every Saturday at 7 Central at twitch.tv/rpmradio, which, if you're listening live, is where you're at right now. And if you're not, try it sometime. You might have fun. It also might be miserable, and you'll end up stop listening after 5 minutes. Either or. But you can go to our Discord channel, throw yourself in the caller waiting room. We do want to hear your opinions and your stuff on roleplay. Today we're going to go over two things, one of which is maturing your character. The other one was a news story that I find fascinating about the basic entire breakdown of Daybreak Games and their parent company, Columbus Nova, due to the Russian oligarch account freezing that the U.S. Federal Treasury is doing. And the complete 180 and gaslighting is probably the best word. Bullshit is probably the accurate word that they pulled over this week. Not to mention the layoff they also did this week of 75 people. Oh, and on Monday when they announced that they have some new game or something like that. Or no, it's H1Z1 going to PS4. It's been a busy week for them and not a good one at that. So that affects several MMOs, the EQ franchise being close to our hearts, DCU Online, Planet Side, and of course H1Z1, which isn't really an MMO, but is tanking very quickly.
And the words of Darth Issues II, let the past die, bro.
Yeah, it's... And if it doesn't die, you have to kill it.
There is that.
Hair flip.
Which Daybreak apparently is doing.
Oh, man, they are.
All on their own.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But we'll go ahead and get into that after we talk about what we've been doing in roleplay, which I understand is probably going to take a little bit of time, but we'll speed through it a little bit since we've had 2 weeks, and I know I personally have had a butt ton of roleplay these last 2 weeks. So, So all right, let's see who wants to go. Oh, look at Jazz. Jazz, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, Jazz.
I was just taking a drink of wine.
Mm-hmm. Just the one
Yes.
this night because we're not doing that game again.
Mm-hmm. Ever again, actually. Ever.
You know that's a holiday that comes around once a year, right?
I listened to that podcast. It was painful. That's not going to happen.
Oh, it
again.
was painful for you, but everyone else loved it.
Yeah, Jazzy with no filter is not.
Hilarious. Was hilarious.
She's hilarious.
All right, what have you been doing into this last 2 weeks, Jazz?
Well, a lot of character development. We've been really focusing a lot on the Talvani RP with Sully and some internal conflict and good drama between Sully, the servants, your guild, and other members of the Talvani.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been a lot of fun because it's been positive, negative roleplay. So I don't mind negative roleplay when it can stay ungod-modded and people don't flounce
And
off
in character.
in a huff. Right, and just stay in character. I actually probably prefer negative roleplay over positive roleplay, to be honest.
No.
I know, right? Who would have known I played such a lovely, kind, positive character named Vaka? We all remember her. She
Y'all
was
motherfuckers
just this-
need Jesus is what you need. Lying up in here.
Kind. That thing you said was epic fail, Jazz. I'm just saying.
Bullshit. Ugh.
Are you playing that character
Sorry,
that's
I had-
supposed to be like, we're supposed to go like, no.
I had this
No.
just this wad of bullshit just stuck in my throat. It just- there we go.
So
I got it down.
anyway, so there was all kinds of roleplay. I roleplayed on Cial with servants, which was hilarious. That was my assassin character being all skulky and sneaky and having to go see Ashen's character next, who's her mentor, and she wanted to get some information from him. So she tracked him down, and Kishmas wanted to be part of it, so they were there, and it was
Managed to get her
intense.
on a boat.
Yeah, that was. I'm surprised that I rolled really well for that because normally she's like, water is a no.
Mhm. The only way
She
out
can
is
swim?
swimming, and
Yeah.
there's what are those fish called, Strafe? Do you remember? The
Slaughterfish.
slaughterfish.
Slaughterfish. Yeah, she's just like, there's no winning out there. There's no way to cheat.
You can
There's
drown,
no winning.
you can be
can
eaten.
yeah, just no. Water scares the crap out of her. So to be stuck out there and no way off, it was, yeah.
We'll have to show her that documentary that James Cameron did, Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
Or was that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That
was that Cameron or
documentary.
Spielberg? I forget now. The
That's
two are
Spielberg,
almost.
wasn't it?
Is it Spielberg? The two are almost interchangeable in their awesomeness.
They are.
I do get them mixed up on some of their older movies.
The movie with the big
I'm
legendary.
sure somebody in
slaughterfish.
chat will probably correct me. So
Mm-hmm.
do your job. But yeah,
So
that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. We've had a lot of guild roleplay going on. We've brought in a couple of new people into the guild. Guild plots are developing, both because my character Kia is now pregnant, which I'm not a fan of pregnant RP, but it made a lot
Why
of
did
sense.
you do that? By the way, I didn't get into that. But what is wrong with you? You know better than that.
Look,
There's some
they
things
are-
you don't roll the dice on, and that's one of them.
No, I roll the dice on everything. And, considering that Trajan and Kia have been at it for a year now in real
Called
time,
contraception.
she has contraception, but, I rolled really high. And so I talked to Trajan. We don't play these characters as much, so it's not as big of a deal for us.
It was a fun character. It was. She was a lot of fun. She's ruined now and will be forever. But she was a lot
Stop
of
that.
You're welcome.
So it was a natural thing. We talked about it, we debated it, and we decided that it made sense for the characters to move forward like this, which fits nicely, segues nicely into the topic here of developing characters sometimes in ways that you don't necessarily personally enjoy, but that it would do the character good to go through that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
so she's going to go through that. We've stretched it out so it'll happen around August in real time. It's quite a distance away, so I'm not worried about it. And that should be fun to develop Kia a little bit more, which I enjoy doing.
Turn
Uh,
her into just some old. Yeah.
no, like you saw, she's a very much a homebody. So this makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense for her. She likes to cook and knit, and she's very much a homebody when she's not stealing.
She's
and
not
killing
working.
people.
She's very boring.
Yeah. So, she's got a lot of different sides, and this will definitely help. I'm trying to develop Kia into more of a leader and less of an active participant in illicit activities. So,
Yeah.
This
More
will
of
help
the
push her.
dawn than the grunt. work.
Yeah, I want her to be more of a leader, and this will push her in that direction, I think. So,
Yeah.
now you never know. I mean, it could backfire horribly. So,
Right.
But-
It could be that some troll eats her baby. Good, Strafe. I'm counting on you.
So in essence, it's my tune's fault that she's in the predicament she's in. Then it would be the reason she went mad because of one of my tunes. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
we also have the role play developing where Trithalis' twin brother is stalking Kia and stalking Trithalis, and so we're going to be developing that over the next couple of months, and with a heightened density of the fact that she's pregnant and could be hurt. So that is, I think, a nice twist to everything. So that'll be fun. And Sia has been going out and killing people more again, and kind of being out there and doing a lot more work, and I've really enjoyed watching her develop. And Sully's Telvanni RP has been very intense as she is dealing with rank and politic within Telvanni. So
Big
it was
mouths-
a very busy
and
2
big
weeks.
mouths out in public, which will go into
Yes.
what I got.
Yes.
Her whole last statement is gonna make her mind explode when y'all get to me. But save me for last.
Save you for last. All right. Well, then I'll go next since I bounce off of both Jazz and Sib in a way. So first off,
You don't bounce off me.
I do if I run hard enough, or you'll bounce
no.
off me.
You just run over me. Okay.
So Tarvala got promoted to Yalif, which is a junior officer rank. So and she's super happy for that. I'm, excuse me, glad to be helping out the servants as well a little bit more. And I was able to, and because of that, my first character I actually inducted into the guild and interviewed was Caves, Jazz. That was, they were like, yeah, we want to try. So they were actually the first one I got to like give the lowdown to, and ask the questions of like, why do you wanna,
nice.
why do you want to, you realize being in the ordination's a lifelong thing. Once you join, after you get out of recruit, it's a lifelong.
Sign your soul
Yeah,
away.
basically, it's like the military, but never ending. It's like being part of the clone army in Star Wars. Yeah, it's pretty much you're just born into it.
Oh, that Dunmer cult.
That's right.
Dun
It is.
cult.
So it was good too. It made me a lot less nervous doing that with somebody at least I knew was like, chill too and understood role play. So get myself back into the swing of things like that.
Yeah.
But with that, the big thing was I actually started probably a pretty big story arc. I've been slowly working on it. I did 2 events, and the first one was it was based off of, actually the original thing was based off of the old legend of the Jersey Devil, which I never told anybody except for Sib. But the Jersey Devil was what gave me the idea of having the Dunmer have to find something that was like killing livestock, and it was spotted, and it was, just really a creepy kind of thing that was tormenting a local village outside of a place called Ebonheart. And so they went there. I typically line up the thing with the stuff, but I don't actually have my character physically go out there because I prefer to stand in for the bad guys, actually have something standing there. In this case, I just used a scary mask and dark robes to represent it. But they've done 2 of them. The first one, it was really super tall, and the second one was 3 feet shorter. And it turned out it was full of black. It was resistant to magic. Magic just basically just melted around this thing, bounced off of it. It was eating livestock. It had actually attacked, what finally got their attention is it attacked a city guard and had, mauled him and killed him in the center of this town. And turned out to find it's some sort of gargoyle, but not the typical. It doesn't have all the traits. It's got no tail. It doesn't have the horns like a typical gargoyle does. And it was covered in like a black ooze. Think Venom. Although that wasn't actually the idea when I actually had it. But it was very Venom-esque when it died and everything slid off of it. But this is actually just an introduction into a much, much larger overarching story of something that could lead to pretty big stuff. It just depends on how people go along with it. But these things aren't being created out, naturally and without assistance. And they're at various stages of strength and proficiency. And there is, in fact, more than one. That's why the first one was 10 feet tall. The second one was only 7. So,
Right.
There's clearly more than one. But it is able to fly. But I've got it should be a lot of fun. It could bleed over into quite a few different things. Just depends on how much people want to do, and it could end in a giant conflict. Like I say, though, I've got general outlines, and like we said on that one episode, it's got branches. But how far into those branches it goes just depends on. Roles is one thing, on how well they attack things and just the decisions they make during the storyline. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. And it's, it's been a while since I've done something that grand of a scale outside of little things here and there. So that was a lot of fun. The other thing, of course, like Jazz said, was with Kenix. And her and Kishmis's character and Nathala, his in-character wife, all getting on a boat, and Kenix kind of spilled the beans about his how it is he was able to leave the ordination, and the fact that he actually hasn't necessarily he's officially left, but unofficially is kind of still working for them and with them. And he, being that they're high rank, he figured that this would be a good time to do that. And since Cial already knew and she had other things, he figured, 2 birds with 1 stone. They already don't trust her, and they never will. I mean, she's a little, scrawny, dirty little wood elf. So it was more of a, look, it's not all bad. Some of them are useful. I mean, it's still dirty, filthy Enwa, but they're useful. Dirty, filthy Enwa. Even they can
Oh,
be
yeah, you-
manipulated to my means.
I forgot to mention that I went to a what was it? It's like dice game.
Oh, you went to that
Oh,
scarabs and
moths and scarabs.
moths and scarabs.
Yeah, Moths and Scarabs. I went there on Cial. It was hilarious.
How did you?
Yeah.
I've never managed to go to that because I've always got something else going on.
Somebody wrote a report on her being there.
Yeah,
it was
yeah, I
great.
saw that.
It was great. It was a lot of fun because she pretended to be very slave-ish and very submissive.
Mm-hmm. Which is
And
probably
most
smart.
people bought it. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is smart because she knows that if she acts any other way, they would just throw her out. So she's being very well, she's well trained, regardless of what people
Right.
think. She knows how to do this stuff. So she's blending in and trying to get comfortable. She has a target there, and she's not going to be able to get to that target right away, because she's got to kind of work her way into so that she's less obvious.
Yeah.
So that's what she's doing. And then she wandered around looking at things, taking notes of hiding places and the guard pathing.
Yeah, and that's when they are like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing? How could we help you?" Kind of thing.
And she was, this one is just looking at the beautiful temple. Plink, plink, plink.
Yeah. Get out of here, filthy Enwa. So, but yeah,
So, yeah,
that
that
was the big part. The other one was at a tea house with Kenix. I actually tried to play on him a little bit more this
I was
last
glad
2
you
weeks.
came. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I haven't seen you there in a while, and that was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and that was with Jazz's character Cial, another one, Dalator, and he was being quite mouthy and not in the most lore friendliest of way around a bunch of ordinators. So there was quite a bit of conflict there. It was all good conflict, as far as I know. He handled it all as you should. I never got anything from him, so. It was all fun.
No,
everyone,
he seemed, yeah.
Everyone involved
It's
had a lot of
very
time.
And it
or a lot
bled
of
over
time,
into
a lot of
Telvanni RP as
fun.
well.
Yeah, and it did. Yeah, and that's when it led to me actually coming to blows with one of those Telvanni people on Kenix, mostly because, yeah, I'm sticking with this story. He started it. That's just the way. I'm the one with the microphone. I can tell it however I want. But he did make the threat first, and then that's not a character was down Dan from it.
Honestly, it was a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of a misunderstanding out of character just in how it went. But what happens in character still happened in character, regardless of any slight
it
misunderstanding.
also-
And it wasn't
it
even
bled
that
over-
big of a misunderstanding, but
It was enough.
it was
And
enough that it came to at least a blow.
Yeah, and it spawned role play both with you
Mhm.
and with Masully, because the whole situation had to be handled amongst the masters, so they had to discuss it.
Right. So yeah,
And they
I
discussed
imagined last night it
everything,
was
so it
was
went
it
really
last
well.
is it last night?
Last
Friday?
night was Telvanni
Yeah, okay.
RP, yeah.
That you guys had quite a bit to go over.
Yeah. So there was quite a lot of stuff that had to be dealt with because of that incident.
yeah. Well, and that's
Ouch.
what the whole point is for. If it's for,
Yeah,
it's
it is. It's
we
a lot of
always
fun
hope
that
one
way.
little. You never know when one little or two little things will start to snowball into something bigger. So, but that's the roundabout of what I've got. So what about you, Sib? What do you got?
Well, it started with I finished my mastery, so I'm full ordinator now, which
Woo!
I'm so happy about.
Woohoo!
And me and Malel and Jervis, then
I don't have to talk to that Tervis guy anymore. I mean, he's the worst, isn't he?
no.
Wait, what?
Actually, me and Tervis kind of have agreed to go into relationship RP on our Dunmere, which so far has been a lot of fun. There's no pressure.
She just
Don't make
completely
me slap
ignores
you.
me.
Yeah,
I did.
She
I'm totally
knows you.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But no, it's been a lot of fun. He's very laid back. He's very no
He's
pressure.
a pretty chill
He's-
dude from what I've seen too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
he's
him.
very not, of course he is upside down, as everybody says,
He
because
is
he's
very
in
upside
Australia.
down. Yeah,
So I know, like, he's also going to college,
he's
and
probably drinking
so,
a Foster's right now because it's only in the morning.
well, I know he's just, it's not going to be a lot of times that we can RP together, so it's going to be slow RP, and I'm okay with that, and I think he's pretty okay with that.
Yeah.
So, but
Usually
So
the
we're-
best way to take relationships in RP anyway. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Jazz and I did, and we were in the same time zone. It
Yeah.
still took over a year.
yeah, but we talked about it out of character a lot before we
Yeah,
actually.
and that's always
got
the way to
started.
go.
Yeah. So from there, one of the ordinators that I became coordinator with, Malel, he got into some trouble and got accused of something that he did, which he did do, but it wasn't done maliciously. He did it like, oh, when you're young and you want to show something off. And anyway, he got in a lot of trouble and he had to take lashings. So my character stepped up and took lashings with him. So I know Ashton teased me that now I'm full, I'm a real ordinator.
That's right. Until you've taken the whip, you're not a real ordinator.
That was kind of intense. And that's kind of what pushed the relationship too with Tervis, is because he took care of her after all that. And then let's see. And then, God, it's just been 2 weeks. It's been a lot of time.
Can you believe they used to do this every 2 weeks, and it was like, we had so much trouble finding stuff at times, and now it's like after 2 weeks, it's like, we got way too much.
Well, I know I did get to RP with Strafei before he started feeling bad, and kind of took the next step in the relationship with him and Voli, him and Trithalis. So they talked about it, and then I've done several sparring things with Caves in character, and he actually asked Voli, my orc, to be kind of like his brute, his force, and she's considering it. Yeah.
Little bodyguard action.
I'd carry Caves out of it.
I was gonna say I could see Volley could totally carry what the hell are they? Argonian through a doorway. Yeah.
Yeah. But to go back to the servants, RP, I've also started I got invited to try out to be an ordinator scout because
I'm
I was
sorry, I have to intercede. I can't see anything right now except Caves in a wig with freaking Bully busting a door down.
She would for Caves. She would. But that's so funny. But yeah, I got invited to test to be an ordinator scout, which I've been working on this last 2 weeks. I still have, I don't know, I think 2 more tests to go. And that's with one of our Patreon, our raid boss Patreon guys, the Truth Bob.
The Truth Bob.
Yeah. So that's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of RP going on. Of course, I went over with Nix, and when he got into his huge brawl, of course.
We're going to call that a kerfuffle.
The kerfuffle.
Yeah, the kerfuffle, that works.
I brought basically, she's like my Harley Quinn character. You never know what she's going to do. So, yeah, it was so much fun these last 2 weeks. I've had a lot of fun.
All right. Now,
dun dun dun,
for the man with the silken voice.
How about that?
We can't hear you.
Drum roll.
Hear you doing that. It's just you thumping on the desk.
I was given a drum roll.
All right, Strafei. You'll have to forgive him if he sounds a little groggy. He's been sick as all get out this week, so we just appreciate that you were able to make it, bud. So
thanks.
Yeah.
You have the floor, sir.
That sounds like poetry hour. How droll. So now I remember Voley came over to let his former Bobcat visit, which turned into them talking seriously about stuff, which was cool. It was neat.
Yeah.
It was a good character dev. And then I got sick. Last week, I had a Devo Saturday, and I texted you or Jazz or somebody, I don't remember when, but I said, hey, I got a previous thing going on. It's once every 3 weeks. We hadn't started it, so we got it back up. And literally that night, I think my buddy's fiance had just gotten over whatever this was. She was well, and we're watching Back to the Future, and I started getting sick.
She's a carrier.
She was. So suffice to say,
these Robert Downey Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. movies. I know how this wins.
7-6 since last weekend. I'm on the up climb now. I still got the rotten congestion. It's like, we don't want to hang out as long as possible.
Yeah. You wanted to breathe at night? Hold on, let me sit on your chest.
I think Thursday, I felt good enough to be social, so I jumped on Trath. And apparently I walked in right after the big snafu that went down in the guild hall. And I had no idea what was going on, but of course I didn't really care because I had kind of a goal in mind. So I will say a Swiftleaf showed up. I'm not going to say which Silverleaf showed up.
Oh my God,
and
that
if
was
people
him?
noticed,
I
if
wondered
people
that.
noticed different speech patterns, I mean, he literally walked by Lord Nex and he said,
That's-
Lord Nex, stop. And just kept walking like
and
he wasn't even there.
And I actually asked. I actually turned out of character. I turned to Seb and I was like, "Is he okay?" it pinged with me out of character that was really, really weird, and I was like, I wonder if the whole twin thing. I was like, I don't know. I couldn't very well go back in there to find out.
You were the only one that picked up on it, and you were the first I spoke to. And I told Billy later in the night, I'm like, there's a reason this is not. He's a little off tonight. I explained. Sibby's flipped out in a good way.
Yes.
But the way I
was
sat
so
there and I
excited.
talked, he talked to Belle, and no, he never talks to Belle. He talked to Belle like she was this grand matron of the ballroom floor. Gave her something nice, talked to her, said, "Oh, your job was so hard, but I'm sure it's really, really good what you do." He was leaving all these little hints, and no one was paying attention to me. They were too fascinated with what just happened.
Right.
It's a great Romulan move. And I was walking through and I was like taking notes, watching everybody.
Yeah.
Sat right by somebody's office while they argued, and he could overhear everything, writing everything down.
Yeah.
Walked up to her after, had a nice little talk. She hugged her quote unquote uncle, and there was a little hint in there where he acted somewhat surprised. Called her child, and she still didn't pick it up. I dropped all these little hints, and finally I had to drop something. Sia apparently swooped in and grabbed it. Jazz had no idea the whole night, and I was like, "This is so."
I was so tired.
Well,
and
with,
I needed to be
talk
in
about
bed.
timing too. That whole thing that happened, man. That just set you up like you couldn't have asked for a better setup.
I couldn't have asked for a better setup
because Kia was too
so
caught up in what happened and worried about her fall and angry as hell. And
he was telling her uncle, he's such a bright spot in her life. He didn't know what he'd do without her. He's worried about me because she got this little sign. And the Silverleaf that was present was like, that's quite interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too good. Too good.
And no one picked up on it except you at the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's only because you've never, no matter what's going on, he's never once bumped into Kenix or in anybody else like that's with him and not like said, "Hey, how's it going?"
Stopped and tried to drone on about every little flowery thing.
Yeah, or at the very least, like ask. He always asks like how are you doing, this and that, and he's like, "Lord Nex," and just like literally, you were like still walking as you said it. Like there was no time to almost even respond. I think I even like he in character. I think he even turned his head and was like, that was odd."
You did.
Yeah,
I literally said, "Lord Nex, stars greet you," and then the next sentence, "Ta," and he kept walking. He didn't even stop.
Mhm.
Right, that was it. Yeah. And then he's
so
like,
it was supposed to be, especially for you, it was supposed to be a Rengots move from the old days, and it was.
Yeah. And
because he would know next.
Yeah, well,
his twin would.
Yeah, at the very least is enough about him, but Nex is just like, well, maybe he's just having a really, really bad day. But he
he's having an off day.
And he never stepped into the office.
Yeah, he couldn't exactly go back in there and be like, "Hey, everybody, he's acting kind of funny."
Yeah, and he never stepped into the office where the traps were laid for him because they were afraid he keeps stuff on Kia's desk. And he sat outside patiently. He was just watching them bump into each other like bumbling fools trying to detect stuff.
And now that I think back, I thought that was strange, but it never even occurred to me why.
And people always wonder, the evil twin thing is it a stereotype? Is it somewhat overplayed? Absolutely, unless you do it right. And then it's like the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody ever sees it coming.
Yeah, so that was awesome.
Well played, man. Good job.
He did drop something, and I sent him a tell and said that Sia will drop down and pick it up.
And I sent her a tell and told her what it was. I said, it's a ring of Yakuden design, and she still had no idea. And I was like, he drank half his wine when Belle brought it to him. He always drinks all the wine. You know how Trath is.
Well, and right now,
he drank half of it, and then he dropped
drinking mead
in it.
Yeah, that is true. He's drinking mead.
Belle brought it. He is drinking mead, yes. And Belle brought it to him to that little table in front of her office. He didn't touch it. He left the coin in the cup with the bottle next to it, and then he tipped her a golden Yakuden coin. He said, "Oh, thank you for your attendance." And he complimented her what a fine job she does. This and that. And he kept talking to Belle like she was this grand, whatever. And Belle was eating it up because no one talks to Belle.
Yeah, if she's like
no one.
She's
he
a
knows
slave
he said
girl,
hello.
right?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
said
she's
hello.
a slave,
Yeah.
so nobody talks to her.
Right.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
He said hello to our vampire lord hanging out there. Falcairn
Yeah.
didn't even notice his existence. He just smiled. He kept drawing notes, and I literally was just lurking around in Romulan mode the whole time. No one picked up on anything. And I kept dropping hints, and finally Sylvie said,
That's
"Stop
so
dropping
When
hints."
you said the Yakuta thing, I was obviously just logging out, but I thought at the time Yakuten. I have right here.
Yakuten.
It's written down. It's written on a little notepad. My little post-it notes. I wrote down Yakuten coin because I wanted to remember that because it struck me that was odd.
So the
So-
overarching thing is, I'm going to say
That's
the reason I was
awesome.
sick. I'm going to say Trath went to go check out Alien Ruin up in Alkir Desert. This is why I've been gone. Because that's how I'm going to play it. Because I mean, I've been
And
sick.
Well,
as
that's
a
what he
dog.
took
told
advantage
her.
of that.
Yes,
he
and I took
told her
advantage.
that that's what he
Yeah.
was doing.
Oh yeah, I told her that. And I was being real careful the way he said things, and I said things just differently enough that people might start to notice. Because he didn't really ever say "darling" too much. He would say, "Oh, hello,
No,
hello,
he
darling."
didn't.
And he would say it once or twice, but he would
Darling.
say there's certain key things he would say.
That is
And
That's
when we rolled
fantastic.
into Trask's house, he literally walked in. He's like, "Oh yes, this place." And that's the last thing I did before you said, "Hey, are you gonna switch over to Trajan?" Because baby RPs. And then I was just too delirious on medicine. I had to go to bed. But that was
Yeah.
my small role play, and at least I tried to make it.
That
as
was
epic as the
fantastic.
small amount of time I had.
I just didn't want it not because we're going on a week and a half of real time, and Trajan still didn't know, and we really needed to get that told so that we don't have somebody walking up and congratulating Trajan. And
Yeah.
No, that was good RP too, because he said, "I got something to show you," and go upstairs. Trajan goes upstairs. He sees the crib by the bed. He scratches his head, and he goes, "Well, looks like I got a new boss." And then Kia's like, "Yeah, me too." He's like, "Are you as afraid as I am?" Trajan said, "Would you hold it against me if I told you I want to run to the hills and regroup?" She said, "No, I'll join you." He's like, "Okay, cool. Then we can attack this together as an Imperial front."
Yep, they're terrified, the two of them. They're just like, "Oh, what are we doing?" But yeah, so that was good.
Yeah.
It was small RP, but it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's sometimes leads to the biggest stuff, So that's awesome, man. Good job on making the
The twin thing was
evil
great.
twin thing work out for you.
I'm
Now,
really
I'm not going to
glad.
spill the beans on where Trath is or if he's done anything to Trath. I'm going to let it play out. I'll let you guys decide who you're talking to. It'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Yep, that's going to be interesting.
Well, he must have shaved his goatee. That's what it's impossible
Yeah,
to
see,
know now.
That's what I was going. Well, he'll have a goatee, so.
So
but then I
that's
was
one of the
like,
things.
Uh,
I literally walked in the door, and he smiled, and he rubbed his cleanly shaven chin, and that's when I ran to Nex. But Nex didn't see the emote. He just saw the greetings and the walk.
yeah, I
And
didn't
then
see.
he was
you
talking
must
to
have been
Bell at
too
the
far
bar. He did
away.
it again. He kept rubbing his chin just so, going. And I did that a couple times. No one noticed.
Yes, you
Yeah.
did. Yes, you did, and I completely missed that. Oh, mutter.
Your subconscious was screaming, Jazz. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
some dark assassin of the night you are. Jeez.
Yeah,
I'm
she was
scared to even bring
preoccupied with her
Bully around.
two favorite people getting into an argument and
Ooh.
coming to blows and both threatening they were going to kill each other. And she's like, "Oh God, this is like my worst nightmare right here."
So that's cool, man. Way to go on that.
Yep,
you got,
well
anybody?
done.
You had anything else? What'd she do? She said, "Hold on. What are we holding?"
What?
Oh,
Who said hold on?
No idea.
So, anyway, we're gonna move on.
What?
All right. So with that, I want to hit real quick this probably for we'll do a solid hour on the actual roleplay stuff here, but I want to hit real quick on this thing with the Columbus Nova and the people that own that supposedly now not actually the game, the financial company that owns Daybreak Games. Because there's been so much backpedaling, it's just you could have basically done a Superman and changed the rotation of Earth and gone back in time. They've done it
I mean,
so freaking
did we
hard.
Did we miss it somewhere where they were owned
No.
by this company? Because
Okay.
I don't remember that ever being discussed.
All right, so let me give you a quick timeline here. Back in the day, 3 years ago, when SOE was up for sale, a company called Columbus Nova, which is a Russian company and a subsidiary of a company called Renova Group, which is owned by a Russian guy named Viktor Vekselberg. He owns the Renova Group. Renova Group owns Columbus Nova. Columbus Nova bought out that area of SOE and renamed it Daybreak Games. All right, so that's what that was. That was 3 years ago. That was what every press release said. That's what John Smedley, the former president of SOE and the one in Daybreak Games for a time before they let him go, and before he was eventually replaced with what at the time I thought was just a suit from Columbus Nova, a guy named Jason Epstein. So that's how that is for 3 years now. What Massively OP, which they're the ones that kind of broke this story, only because Daybreak Games actually responded to their email and basically was trying to, in real time, rewrite history, which,
So Ashen.
for those who don't know Russia, is exactly what Russians do.
So Ashen. Really, the Russian hack was not upon our MMO.
It's
Holy
really
smoke.
this whole time. Yes, it's crazy. So for 3 years now, that is what everyone has believed. Now, it comes out that Viktor Vekselberg, who owns the Renova Group and its conglomerate and its subsidiaries and blah blah blah, he's like a Russian oligarch. And right now, because of the stuff between America and Russian, they're going to be putting a freeze on that company, and by putting a freeze on those assets, every company that goes down the line, which includes Columbus
Daybreak
Nova.
Games.
And from
and
there,
Columbus Nova.
Daybreak Games. You're right. Now, the thing that changed was this Massively OP actually reached out to them, and they responded with, and I'm going to quote this because it is contrary to what Massively, Kotaku, like Forbes, when this was bought out 3 years ago, Forbes, that crazy fake news organization of Forbes, also reported on this because it was a major acquisition. There was
Yes.
millions of dollars that traded hands for this, and it said Daybreak Game Company has no affiliation with Columbus Nova. Jason Epstein, former member of Columbus Nova, is and has always been the primary owner and executive chair of Daybreak Games, formerly Sony Online Entertainment, which was acquired from Sony in February of 2015.
Right.
That is utter bullshit. That is not. I mean, and earlier in the month, to add to this, apparently somebody from what they think is an IP address that was associated with Columbus Nova was going in, editing Wikipedia pages and everything on the internet the best they could to scrub all of this from the internet, knowing apparently that these account freezes and sanction kind of things were coming. So now, if you are trying to, they're saying now that, oh yeah, it was a mistake. It was just something that wasn't really that important, and so we just let it go on for 3 years.
Sure.
And for 3 whole years, too, by the way, I just want to remind everybody that click the terms of service for EQ, EQ2, DCU Online, H1Z1, and PlanetSide 2. The terms of service also said that Daybreak Games was owned and operated under the guise of Columbus Nova. I mean, it's just, how loose and goosey those terms of services are when lawyers are involved. You know that they always just like randomly don't put the correct company that owns this other company in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we all understand that, right? You know how back in the day when World of Warcraft first came out and it was owned by Blizzard, but they said that they were owned by Bill's Crab Shack. We all remember when that happened, right? Because nobody really pays attention to that stuff.
You mean
right?
Dire Fears Crab Shack?
It might have been Dire Fears Crab Shack, yeah.
Dang,
They were
Gormal's
so-
been banking on us for
Right.
years. We didn't know.
Well, it turns out they found out 3 years later that no, it was in fact owned by Blizzard, and they had no association with Dire Fears Crab Shack. Yeah, I know. So basically, what this means is they are okay. Let's give them. I'm going to give them benefit of doubt for this argument. By the way, I don't believe this benefit of doubt for one reason. I'm not a journalist. I'm an opinion guy. I don't give a shit. I have my opinions, and I've also been following this company since they slowly just started to ruin one of my favorite game franchises. So the other part was that apparently they also laid off 75 employees this week from across all their different games. I was not aware that they had that many to lose, personally.
Yeah.
But they claim, and I can understand this one. I will say is probably true, that they claim that this was already in the pipe and they were already getting ready to lay off these 75 to 100 people. Which, by the way, shout out to,
isn't the point, but
right?
Yeah.
Optically, really bad timing. In the same week that all this other stuff is coming out, literally the next day. But I do have to give a shout out to the games industry. A lot of other game companies, ZOS for one, I think Blizzard, a lot of the other MMO companies have been reaching out to these 75 to 100 devs with like, hey, we've got job openings here. So they're really the industry is trying to help these people, because it does. While we'll talk about what I hope for the games and stuff like that underneath this basically just god-awful company, but there are real people involved, and I hate for anybody to lose their job, their livelihood. That's, and especially in a layoff and so suddenly, apparently. So, good on the games industry and the other developing companies for understanding the talent and the working conditions a lot of these people probably had to go under, and reaching out and offering them jobs and things like that. So that's really cool. So that said, by the way, I want to really put in here that these are small companies too, because the assets being frozen are between 1.5 and 2 billion with a B dollars.
Wow.
That's what's being frozen. By the way, EverQuest does not make that much.
No.
Maybe over its entire lifespan back in the day, I don't know, but so the thing of this all is, and where it leads is that I frankly, for those that don't know, like, Russia's this, I know right now in America, Russia's this kind of big Donald Trump thing, Hillary Clinton thing, blah, blah, blah. But the Russian government is not a friend to the world. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. Now, don't get me wrong. I say the Russian government. The Russian people are fucking awesome.
They're fantastic.
They're great people. And and thank you, Russian people, for all the dash cam videos that have given me literally dozens of hours of entertainment.
He's not lying.
I am not lying. Not lying. You guys are awesome.
That way, man.
I've
people
always
power, people not power, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really do. I've always loved the people of Russia. They've always been really good, strong people. That's why I make the joke, you're strong like 10 Russian women, because 10 Russian women would probably kill you. But the Russian government isn't a friend of anybody in the world. That's why these things are, even their own people, and that's why these things are happening. It's not just America doing this; it's other countries. They're just basically tired of their bullying. To give you a quick example of the things that they do, everyone knows the Black Lives Matter movement, and then on top of that, the movement, the support the police. Support the blue,
right? Back the Blue, I think it's
Back
called,
the Blue. Thank you. I couldn't. They've actually in Russia. The government has been caught actually creating Facebook groups and things like that of both of these, and then people join them, and they ramp up the rhetoric of on one side they'll be like the police are terrible and they just out to kill all black people, and on the very same kind of page, just the opposite side, black people are just, they have it coming and the police are just doing the best they can. And, and then people join these groups and they, everyone picks their tribe. Yeah. And this is just a quick example. Whatever you believe on either side of these, whatever, I don't care. But the fact is they're playing both sides against the middle. It's
the bait to bring in the weak-willed. It's like Jedi mind tricks, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It really is.
And in this instance of both of those, there's going to be somebody is probably on one side or the other. you're gonna get the really hyped up people, and that's exactly what they're after. They want instability in the world. They mess with everybody's elections, not just America's. They've messed with Europe's. They've messed with Asian countries. They mess with everything. They're basically
South America. I know
South
there
America.
was some,
oh yeah.
I forget what country, but there was one of them that they really were screwing with.
Right. So when I say that, like Putin is not a good guy. He's ex-KGB. He thinks like a KGB guy. He's not a friend of his people or any people. He's a friend of Putin.
Hey, Ashen, here's a nerd shout out for you. What do you call it? Shadows of the Evil Empire. Oh, Star Wars plug.
It's pretty close, yeah. It's Soviet space Russia. Jedi kill you. So when this is what I'm getting at with.
Oh, you go against Empire? Empire puts boot in you.
That's right. So that's what I'm saying. If for those that don't know how bad Russia is, that they would put their fingers into even something as small as an MMO development company is not outside of the realm of possibility. And the fact that this gaslighting and backburning, turning back of all these things and saying that this Jason Epstein is the sole owner of this company, which, by the way, I understand why. I mean, if that's the case, investors and stuff, you don't want one sole owner. Of course, the sound of Daybreak Games being owned by a company like Columbus Nova, that always sounds better than it's been bought out by one individual. So, if that is true, giving them a benefit of the doubt that just Jason Epstein has owned it this entire time, well, were you lying then or are you lying now? Because either way, they're lying at some point.
And wasn't who did the hack? Did we ever find out who did that hack originally? That took us out for a month?
The DDoS attacks that were constant?
The DDoS attacks? No. The attack that closed down EQ for those summer?
I remember that happening, but I don't ever remember them ever.
Wouldn't it be ironic if
it was Russians?
Right.
Yeah,
so that they could buy the game.
And they would. And it's, Russia's a big company, a big government. One hand not knowing what the other hand owns.
Well, cyber warfare is a thing.
It is.
Yeah, it really is. And the minute this broke, that was the first thing I thought was all the DDoS attacks that were pissing us off, that were closing all of the games down for Sony for so long. I don't think that was just like one of those light bulb moments. I was like, geez,
what better
really?
Way...
Our game isn't even safe.
What better way to test something nasty? It's like, hey, let's just attack something as mild as a video game.
This little nerd community. They'll make an uproar in their little community, but who's gonna? It's not gonna be on the front page of the New York Times.
Right.
Yeah.
In other news, tens of thousands of nerds couldn't log into their nerdy little world.
There was that hold my beer moment because Sony had to lie, and then it did make national news. So
that is true, but to
go hat aside, there is some serious stuff going on.
Yeah, and to go in what Jazz had said, Putin himself had said World War III won't be fought on a battlefield. It will be fought in a world of ones and zeros. And for them to be taking a company like this. Now, okay, so I know we are a role play show.
Way off topic.
Well, it's still all connected to this.
It all connects.
What I want to say I would want to give, because not everybody knows what Russia is really, that they're really not the friend. They're kind of a joke. It's like North Korea. North Korea is a serious threat to the world. It's run by a fat little chubby guy. It's really hard to take it seriously that he has a nuclear capability. I get that.
The would-be Blockbuster manager, right? Bad haircut.
Right.
Bad haircut.
Every time I see him, that's what I think.
And bro, I charge you extra. Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm out.
You've been here 4 hours. You eat all my food. You scared my wife. You need to go home now. I love that.
Awful.
It's John Panetta. If you don't like the joke, John Panetta came up with it, and he's dead. Why do you hate dead people, Jazz? He was a fat little funny comedian. He was fantastic.
He was fantastic.
So what I'm getting at here is that this, whatever you believe or in whatever way you might take this, it is actually really important because if the funds are frozen and Columbus Nova, as we pretty much all probably think actually does, is the money behind Daybreak Games, excuse me, one of the biggest franchises in MMO history could be shutting down. for one. DC Universe Online could be shutting down. PlanetSide. This new H1Z1, which is supposedly getting ready to come out on PS4 sometime soon, even though it's getting its ass handed to it by PUBG and Fortnite. All that stuff could come to a screeching halt. But to try to put a good side on this, if this does happen, if worst case scenario, I don't want anybody playing EQ and all these games to lose what is basically their favorite game. I've been there. I've been through, things like Star Wars Galaxies being changed to the point of being unplayable and then shutting down. Matrix Online, which was a lot of fun, shutting down. I've been in games that have sunset, is what they call it.
SWG lives again.
Yeah, but with outside of emulators. We've all been in games like that. If you've been playing MMOs a long time, for some of the more recent ones, WoW, ESO, if that's your first one, you've not really had that problem. But it does suck, and one day it's going to happen. They can last for a very long time, but they can't last forever. But the good thing with that might come out of that is those franchises could get bought out and finally maybe get in the hands of people that don't seem to be tearing it apart piece by piece every single time, and shrinking their staff every time every time we turn around every year or two, it seems like they're having a layoff at that company, which is just awful. So I find it fascinating. I know maybe it doesn't have a lot to do with role play, but
it does.
But there are role players in those games.
There's role players in those games, and they're going to have to find a new home, and
that
hopefully
sucks.
somebody buys it. Although I don't know if ZOS is going to buy them or not, but
yeah, I mean, it would, ZOS would actually have the money because they did win that. I think it was $500 million lawsuit against Oculus Rift that they won. So they got that on top of everything else they already own. So they're sitting pretty right now. But Just Survive is the other one, which I think is an H1Z1 spinoff. But yeah, man, it's a real bummer to see something like that come about, just because. I mean, it's like we learned with Nixon and every politician and every scandal from then to now. It's not necessarily the deed and the crime that gets you; it's the lie and the cover up that really, really gets you.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole thing with the whole Sony shutdown back then, was because they lied about it. If they just would have told the truth, I don't think anybody would have been that upset. Everybody gets hacked.
People are very
just don't lie.
Very forgiving to honesty, And when you're not honest, and it's so clear you're not being honest, when
you've held the Ring of Power for so long, you should be like, no, serious though.
I get it.
When you have the Ring of Power so long that you've gotten away with so much, you start getting arrogant. You start thinking you can get away with anything. Of course, you can't once it comes out, like you were describing a scandal. But at that point, it doesn't really matter. It's the whole mindset of, well, I'm in power. What do you know?
Yeah, exactly. I know better than you. I'm smarter than you. I've got this Ring of Power. What are you going to do about it, peasant? So yeah, I wanted to hit that because it hits near and dear to our hearts here on the show. Hey T, how's it going? So I really felt that needed to be something to go over, and it is, and honestly, what I gave you was the stripped down version. If you go read the article over at Massively OP, like their articles, they wrote it, they got responses back from Daybreak Games gaslighting them, and these people, I listened to their podcast on it, and they were like, they're so kind-hearted. They're like, oh, we must have got that wrong 3 years ago, but then they did journalist stuff, and they're like, no, because if we did, so did Kotaku, so did Forbes, so did all these other places. They're lying to our face,
Yep.
So, it's just, man.
What?
Thank you for following, T. Appreciate that. T just followed us, so it was a ding.
Woohoo!
And it's the EverQuest leveling ding. I'm glad to hear my sound effects actually work during the show like I'd hoped they would. Speaking of EverQuest.
That ding is the ding of endorphins.
It really is. That's why I had to pick that for everybody that followed us during the live show. So,
especially when you're deep down.
And which, if you haven't followed us during the live show, go ahead and twitch.tv/RPMMO, hit that like button. And if you got a Prime account, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Let's just hope that in the end, these people that lost their job, they can find some work somewhere else. They do good work, and that these companies, that they're able to keep these games going. And if they do transition to new ownership because of whatever reason with all this, that it goes smoothly, and that we don't lose one of the original MMO franchises, the first one that really did it in 3D as well. And has been around since, 1999. I mean, that's almost 20 years now and it's still running, the original EQ. And then EQ2 was 5 years later. So here's hoping. So with that,
let's RPN like it's 1999.
I knew you were going to say that.
1999.
Okay. I got to get the topic up now. Where is it?
Yeah. So, all right. So with that, we'll go ahead and hit our main topic. But before that, let's go ahead and see who is representing the show with a word from our sponsor. Does your child still watch cartoons, anime, play video games for hours a day, and speak about Pokemons hiding in their phones as if they could see them in the real world? We here at Forced Maturity Bootcamp understand, and we are here for you. We'll whip your fat, pasty, socially awkward lump that birthed from your loins because of one night in the back of an Oldsmobile into a fully functioning, semi-coherent adult like figure society won't cringe away at and avoid eye contact with. Our carefully selected and overly chiseled counselors will show them things like sports, motorcycles, and vehicles with wheels so big it gives me a half chub just thinking about it. By the end of our program, they'll not waste their time spending hours watching cartoons or playing their Playbox Wiis and wasting money in online gaming. Instead, they'll watch 3 hours of sports every single day, go to monster truck rallies, and spend hours and possibly hundreds of dollars at bars just to show how great they are and that they aren't home like some kind of loser. These are, of course, acceptable forms of entertainment, and we'll see it that they agree to it by the end of our program. So send your kids to us. We'll take them anywhere from age 5 to 30. Just because they can vote doesn't make them any less of an embarrassment to you and your family. Call our toll-free number at 1-800-NO-NERDS. Do it now, you scumbag!
Sunday.
And also, rest in peace, R. Lee Ermey. We love you, brother. Semper Fi.
Indeed.
I am not built to be a drill instructor. That is really hard on the vocal cords. All right, so
we need to guest star Wacky Chodo one day to do it. He's pretty good at it.
Is he good at it? Yeah, I bet he is. He's the military.
My little brother turns into a terrible person once he starts working
once
out.
He goes military. You're gonna take that Wacky Chodo.
No.
He's working right now.
Not the little Strafe.
Not the little Strafe.
The little Strafe.
Oh, jeez. That's an image.
Mini Strafe. Exactly like Strafe in every way except for 1/8 his size. By the way, rest in peace, Troy, or Vern Troyer, or whatever his name was. Little Mini-Me died this last 2 weeks, too.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Last two of America's greatest. R. Lee Ermey and Mini-Me. Probably in that order. All right, so maturing your characters. It's not the years, it's the mileage, to quote Indiana Jones. So how does one mature a character? Do you want to mature them like a fine wine, or are they going to mature like milk?
That's a nice image.
One is what you want. The other one, probably going to ruin your
much.
breakfast cereal.
Yep.
So one of the best ways that I like to do it is, of course, it's situational roleplay is often the best way to do it. Like literally, this comes about just like what happened with Kenix on the boat, like we said earlier, and then see how it all plays into each other. How we do this, that's amazing. It's even better when you point it out. And then also what ended up being a fight with another character. those really weren't necessarily planned out. It's just that the opportunity arose, and then you take it. It's the Luke Skywalker losing his aunt and uncle, and then because of that he had no connection, so he went off with Obi-Wan, became a Jedi, saved the galaxy, and eventually throws a lightsaber over his shoulder and disappoints apparently Strafe.
Hey, that's Disney. That's Disney, bro. Frack Disney.
That's saying. Right. Or Harry Potter, running down to the bathrooms to help Hermione, when there's a troll in there, and that's how they end up becoming best friends. And after they were already kind of shitty to each other before that. So I mean, that for me is probably the best way to mature. And when we say mature, I don't mean like they're getting older. I mean, that's one way. Obviously, as you get older, you do. Hopefully, thank you, Jazz. Mature. I was gonna say, because I think I've got people in mind that I'm like, maybe not. Not so much.
Because because maturing does not necessarily mean growing up either. I am not a proponent of growing up. I will never grow up, but I am mature, and being responsible is important.
And there's a difference between being mature and being childish. I mean, you can I get it. I play video games. I've got Dragon Ball Z Super figures over here. I've got Witcher 3 figures here. I've got more droids than I can fucking count all around me on my desk. I'm definitely childlike, but I still can afford all that stuff.
Childlike.
I
Definitely
have a childlike wonder.
Childlike.
Well, I know. I think
kind of freak would
when I
laugh
was
at
growing
that?
up, my mom always told me that grown-ups don't have toys. Real grown-ups don't have toys. And as I got older, I realized that I don't ever want to be that person. And like my husband, he has his crystal puzzles. He's the guy that always buys the collector's edition, largely because he wants this little figurine thing. The statue. Mm-hmm. He's obsessed with these things. He has so many of them.
That is
for those on the live stream. That right there is Furiona V from one of the original EverQuest expansions that came with it in a collector's edition back when those were first popular.
I have the lifter off of the wall of
Furiona
V.
Have it. Yep, and this is an actual figurine. It's made of plastic. It actually looks pretty good for being a cheap piece of crap, but I still have it. But I also can afford it because I'm mature and I go to my job every day. And I do things like what I had to do this week, which we will not get into because it involved my butt and cameras. So,
Jay always buys, even for games that he's not necessarily like 1000% about, he buys the collector's editions. And I don't care about the statuette and stuff. So unless he wants the statuette, like he'll say, well, if we get both, then I get 2 statues. So there are times, but yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't want people to think that we're saying, grow up and get off my lawn, because like she said, child at heart versus being mature.
Ashen is the childlike emperor.
Yeah,
and I'll be your childlike Vader. Let's do this.
And can I be the childlike empress?
You could be.
Off the Neverending Story.
And that way, at the end of it, when he screams your name for years until Google is created, I will not know what he is saying. I could never understand what that damn kid was saying at the end when he screamed the childlike empress's name and gave it to her.
Oh yeah,
because he's just like, like. Okay,
I gotta look it up.
Chunk. I think it was his mother's name, but I don't remember what that was either. But yeah, for the longest time, I couldn't understand what she was.
It was the random name generator from ET1.
Basically, Ungstavlunde. So it's a little better than that, but not by much. But
not by much.
But it's situational because the only other way to really do it is scripting it, planning it. And we actually have Mikey waiting on the line. We'll get to you here in just a sec, Mikey, because I want to get to the 2 points.
Moonchild.
That's
what it says.
Yeah, which that's definitely not a product of the 70s right there.
What a name. Wow. All right, man. Moonchild. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's so cool, right?
I can
man.
see it, man.
I can feel the music. It feels like pot. So the situational role play, and everyone has a general idea maybe of kind of like, if this pops up, if this pops up, if this pops up, and sometimes you don't even have that, like a situational come up, you're like, ooh, this would work great for whatever, that just pops into your head. The other way
we mentioned all the time is like literally Ren carrying that baby around.
Yeah,
totally changed the whole character.
Yeah, it totally, revamped.
It made him
revamped and
approachable.
matured him. Yeah,
yeah, it did.
And he changed. He physically, because he wouldn't even talk to his daughter until after he had that child. And after he had that child,
at revision, he came back to you later after a while.
Yes, he did. But it wasn't until after he had that kid.
No, it wasn't. But we're gonna agree to disagree.
It was.
Okay.
It was during the after. Because
it was a couple months later, and he literally was like, "Hey, I can't alienate you because you're my spawn. So let's
spawn."
But he was
which
like
is the best way to read. That's how I from now on. That is how I greet all of our children. Hello, Spawn.
My kids don't like me to call them that. They don't think it's funny.
Your kids have a terrible sense of humor.
Says the kid dancing around with a unicorn head on. So
yeah, he got the unicorn head instead of the awesome horse head. Nerd.
Well, we didn't want him to get the horse head, so he got the unicorn head instead.
Bad choice. That's how bronies are born.
All that whole situation is bad to worse.
Yeah, it's but the other way is planning it in advance in like an event, which it's like the difference between having an idea and using a situation in a role play and then like making it happen. Like, you can't do that. It's just never nearly as organic if you're constantly forcing like your character to evolve, especially if they're, for lack of a better way, like go Super Saiyan. I just reached a new level and like, that can work, but. Like I know we've all probably done different role plays, like something in them snaps and it transforms, but the best way to do it is to use a situation where you're also allowed to do that, for one, and not just create it on your own by like pushing someone else's buttons and causing a fight and things like that. There's those often it just comes off like that comes off on the spotlight challenge kind of a thing. Like you're just like being look at me. And a lot of the people that seem to go that route seem to do that constantly, which is why I think I don't prefer planning it out in advance, because they typically, that's all they do. So let me go ahead and do that since we got those two on there. But that's the two ways as far as I see it. And
you're right, though, man. If you plan it for the future, and you start taking steps to get to that point, it's a lot better than just springing it on somebody.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything needs to be a slow crawl. If Harry, to use the Luke Skywalker Harry Potter thing, Harry can't go from being a first year to the kid that he was in year 7. It was a slow burn. He had to learn the spells. He had to go through all these trials and tribulations. To use Dragon Ball Z, if at the very start of Dragon Ball Z when they meet Vegeta. If Vegeta hadn't been the first guy and instead they jumped all the way to the end where it was Majin Buu or Cell, it'd have been a very short show because they'd have been dead instantly because there was no increase in power or knowledge or fighting skill to get them to the point where they could eventually do that, which is why that treadmill in that show works so well. But in a lot of ways in roleplay, you kind of have to do the same thing. You've got to do the footwork. And that is how you mature your character. So... with that said, real quick, and we'll get back to all that too, I want to go to our phone lines where we've got Mikey waiting on the line. How's it going, Mikey?
Hi there.
Hello.
First off, congratulations on episode 40.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is a long way coming. You guys deserve all the praise and all. Thank you so much for keeping the content going as well.
Oh, stop. Go on.
But I need a few moments to wipe the brown off my nose real quick, but
it's all right. We'll call you Frank the Brown-Nosed Reindeer.
So I actually have a few points, or 2 questions. My first question is, how would you define maturity in the sense of roleplay? If you had to define it, what would you call it?
Well, I know how I would do it. Anybody want to take that before?
You go ahead and do it first.
Well, fine, then I will. So much for letting you guys try to talk. For me, it's maturing your character is basically change. They grow and that they change, just like you would in real life. You know, I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or further back. Probably sometimes not even a year ago. Things and situations that happen in life and in role, just like that, and in role play, they can change your character. And say for example, like somebody that was one way, and then they go to boot camp, they go to training, they go to war, and they come back, and they're a little different. They're not quite the same person they were. They've matured, they've grown up. They've also, in the same way of role playing, gained a certain set of skills they have learned over a number of years. And often in our cases, it's magicka or magic or combat skills and things like that. So those kinds of things, they slowly mature the character. Maybe they are able to settle down and they're not, so silly or goofy. I know for my example, Tarvala, when I created her, she is still a little silly and goofy, but she was very naive. She was very, she had very little combat ability. She was learning as she went, and over the last year of role play, she's come into her own. She knows, given it's an accelerated rate, but even a year of role play, she can use magicka she couldn't do before. When she first got there, she couldn't, walk on water with magic spells or breathe under it. But those all happened due to role play events and training exercises that, say, the Servants of the Temple did, and that's how she learned it. She didn't learn it because I said so. She learned it because somebody basically taught her, and then that gave her the practice to learn it.
So it sounds like to me, maturity would be more like the measure of change that a character has gone through.
Pretty much.
Specific set.
Yeah, that's part of it, and of course, that the other, there's more aspects to maturity. There's that, and then there's the when someone insults you, that you maybe don't get offended by it every single time. You, as I've learned to do, look at where the insult is originating from before I decide to get offended by it. If the crackhead on the side of the road is like, "You're stupid," I'm like, okay, well, that's one crackhead's opinion. I guess if you think, you don't really know me. You're just, you're dragging your mattress behind you. So, really, whatever, but if somebody I know and care about is like, you're being an idiot, I might have to take that to heart. So that's, that's another aspect of maturity that we mean as well, is how they would interact with other people.
And like personalities change over time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with Vaka, when I first started role playing her, she was cold and controlled and unemotional and was very manipulative and callous. And as she got older, she got more passionate. She got a lot more manipulative, but she also cared. And it took a while for people to see that, but that was something that developed over time. She wasn't like that in the beginning at all.
Yeah.
It was all an act. And as she got older, she really did care. She cared about people. And sadly, of course, the people she cared about suffered the most.
Right.
Because she was harder on them than she was on anyone else.
The memories.
Yes. So she was, but I allowed role play. And then, she got betrayed several times, and that made her a little harder in some ways, but not others. So, it was important to use the role play to change her and grow her into the person she became later.
Yeah.
So then, do you think that there's obviously a correlation between the number of years that a character has on them and the maturity, but it's not necessarily causation?
Any character starts the journey one way. By the end of that journey, even the halfway through the journey, they're not the same person. And if you are that same person at the middle part or the end of that journey, then man, you have shown no growth.
It's been a very boring journey.
It's been a boring journey, yeah.
That's definitely true.
Time is not always, and we've said that before, like with the time dilation episode 2 weeks ago. Time in role play doesn't pass like it does in real life. In real life here, we are all going to our job day in, day out. the things that really kind of end up defining us are often big events, things that challenge us.
Experiences.
Yeah, it really challenge us or are unexpected, and that we have to overcome them or struggle through them, hardships and things like that. Or, and good things, getting to people that get to travel overseas and see other countries, and it's a learning experience to see other and experience other cultures and things like that. That's a good way that you can actually grow as an individual and person and realize, maybe how good you have it or how different the world is, in other places than your small little, neck of the, corner of the universe. So there's, but with role play, time obviously has to pass differently. And, if you can't necessarily, you've got to squeeze multiple kind of years of experience into a story format, which is why stories work so well. They're always on, unless you're J.R.R. Martin, where, you just have to go into every inane detail and then take 15 years between books. Most stories, they, the things that happened or TV shows or movies, just when you think things are getting ready to calm down, boom, something else comes up that's out of left field, but also it's still on the field. It's not completely separate. It just has something. It's just something else that comes up. Is that kind of what you were thinking of?
Oh, there he is.
No, I'm reflecting because I'm an idiot.
Reflect faster.
I can't. I'm slow. My
The
legs.
sun
they
reflects
don't
just as
carry
fast off of objects as it did when it got to them. Why can't you be more like the sun?
Be like the sun. Be more reflective.
That's right. Be shiny.
The only 2 cents I'd add to that is that there's this thing in psychology called fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. I don't know if you guys have heard of that or not.
I think I've heard of the fluid one, not crystallized.
It's basically, you're much more open to learning things, less experience you generally have. But as you gain more experience and learn things, or, as you mature a little bit more, then you're much more set in your ways. So say, for instance, as an example, a kid learning a language at the age of 4 is going to have a lot, an easier time than learning, than a guy at 20 learning Spanish. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
To play a random note, I really want a Crystal Pepsi now, bro. Thanks.
Ugh. Well, this will be Strafe's last episode, everybody. Say goodbye to him.
I generally hate Pepsi, but that Crystal
if you
one,
drink
dude,
a Crystal
I don't know what it
Pepsi
was.
at this point, I'm pretty sure you're going to die.
Well, yeah, but just saying.
Ugh.
This
Did you
distraction over.
the complete ADD moment. There was a video of somebody that found a Crystal Pepsi and took a drink of that on the internet. It didn't go well for him. Let's just say vomiting ensued.
They re-released it a couple years ago, man. So you had
This was an
few fresh
original.
ones out. Oh no! Don't do that.
exactly. But no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I actually have. I forgot what that was called. But yeah, it's the premise of why your mind is more elastic. It's why old people are old people, and they're horrible. All of them are just horrible. It's why, as you, like your grandparents, they're set in their ways. They get up, they go to Denny's at 6 o'clock every morning. That's what they do. And can they change that? No, they really don't want to, because why would they?
Mean. They're just mean.
And some of them are mean and slightly racist. That's how they grew up. And you're not gonna, no matter how the rest of society might be evolving, you're not going to change that, because, as going with the psychology term you used, it's crystallized in them. That's just, them brown people are just that way. You're not going to change that. At this point, you can really just wait for it to sort of nature to take its course, and it dies off on its own. It's that saying that what one generation tolerates, the next generation embraces. And that's how things get to rock and roll music being the devil, in to where we are now, where bitches and hoes could be the title of a song and then played on the radio. It's literally like that, because the 70s people thought that the 50s people were too stuck up, and And then the 70s people had kids, and the 80s people are like, yeah, Bon Jovi. And then, it just goes from there.
Well, I mean, not only that, but speaking of generation caps, if you look at history or like the overarching trend, it's like each generation that comes after inherits an innately more complicated world. For instance, like 50 years ago, we never had to worry about nuclear bombs.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, not to this scale anyway.
Right, I know what you mean. Yeah, I get you.
So, do you think that...
Tell that to the Japanese. Yeah, 50 years ago, they didn't have to worry about it, huh, Mikey?
I think he meant 100 years ago.
I know. But no, I understand. You mean mutually assured destruction, which 50 years ago really wasn't a thing, but now in 70s and 80s became a thing.
With the exception of the Cuban Missile Crisis, yeah. But I mean, like, they didn't have to worry about. Well, God damn it, I'm sucking at examples today. But
so roleplay.
The idea, the idea what I'm trying to get at is that with each succeeding generation that gives rise to a much more complicated world, does that play into the adaptation of maturity, or does it stay the same? Does that make sense to you guys, or like
no? Well, I get what you're saying. And that's the thing too. The longer a character goes, obviously, just like what you were saying, the more complicated it is, because the more, we all come up with a little bit of backstory, but through the actions of roleplay, the amount of, and the more roleplay you do, the more backstory and character that character has that isn't created just in your own head as on off-screen backstory. It actually has happened, So when you have, as Tarval is right now, a 1-year-old character, she's progressed quite a bit in 1 year. But compared to, say, Xanis, who I played for 10 years, that dude had stuff that I don't even remember happened to him, and it's almost exponential in the way it goes, because one thing snowballs into another, then that snowball climbs back up the hill. Then
no, bro.
Goes back.
No,
back
bro.
And forth.
Smoball. We got to keep the smoball.
Keep the smoballs.
Yes, keep the smoball.
I'm gonna hit you with a smoball, but you're in Texas,
well,
so
I
there's
think
no telling when to get one.
One of the things that I had to address, and because I've studied sociology and psychology, and it probably plays into how I design my characters, but the whole as you get older thing does play into, or should play into, and often doesn't play into character design. You have someone who is, let's say in real life, 25 years old, and they're making a character that is 500 years old, but they're acting like a 20-year-old.
Right.
Not somebody who's been alive
because
for 500
the player
years.
is in their 20s.
Right.
So they're acting,
and they're having
they do.
They're having a hard time understanding that, and as someone gets to be like us, who's 40, 50 years old.
Yeah.
I've been around a while now, and I'm starting to understand why my grandma was like the way she was about some things, because I see now what she meant when you're looking back over 50 years. When I was 20, I'd say old people were 40.
Right. And now you're
now
like,
that I'm
but
50,
you don't feel
I'm
50,
not
do you?
Right. No, old people are 80. That it's shifted. So like with Vaca, who originally thought she was 30, when she really woke up and realized that she was as old as she was, her personality shifted, because all of us, and I didn't see how it couldn't, because all of a sudden, all of her life experiences were there for her to relate to, and she changed, and her maturity increased and changed. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. Whereas a lot of people, when they make characters, I'm 500 years old. I'm a president of this organization over here, and I have been, and I have all power magically that I have earned. But
and I'm a purple Wookiee on top of that.
Yeah, and I'm going to go bounce around on 1 foot naked on a table and jump around and,
What is this alcohol you speak of? I have not seen this before. Are you 500 years old?
Yeah. So, I mean, or like we had a gentleman who was playing an 1,100-year-old vampire, which we had to walk back to 500 because, well, for obvious reasons, that wouldn't have worked. Yeah. But he walked back to a 600-year-old vampire, but he was still acting like a 15-year-old kid, which eventually turned out to be apropos because he was 15.
Right.
Which I pegged right away, and eventually came out as like unsurprised for me, because I was like, well, that explains why he was acting like such a turd. But I think when you're designing a character, you have to keep in mind the maturity.
Well,
or people just won't take you seriously.
This makes me go back to one of the things that actually, a good tangent that I wanted to touch on real quick was, I think when Ash said that you don't even really remember everything that happens to your character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's another psychological thingy called the curve of forgetting, right? The best example I have of this is like in the Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf is at the cave and he's like, I have no memory of this place, right? Yeah. He's a wanderer. He's been throughout Middle-earth for millennia, but he can't remember everything. And if you have a character that's, say, 200, 300 years old, granted, they have, maturity to a certain point, they're not going to remember everything. Right. How does that factor into their psyche? You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. I mean, and that's just... Sorry.
As he chokes on his own spit.
I was choking
Something else that happens when we get old.
I've got so many great words, the best words, such amazing words. I was choking on them as they were coming forth from my
They were words. They were amazing words.
Amazing words. Yeah, well, I mean, that's just one of those things. That's one of those, and that's how in a character. That's why I on a lot of mine, partly because I personally suck with names. I'll have my guys, that they'll. I can't snap that well. Someone snap in the microphone for me. There you go. They'll do that thing and be like, your name is Tibbles, Fibbles, Gibbles? I'm sorry, I don't remember who you are. They get in the general area of what the person's name is, but they botch it up. And I do that partly because they've met so many people over a period of years that they just, Xanis did that a lot. It was that whole...
Maka did too.
Yeah, it was that whole, what's that, for those, for our 80-year-old listeners, the whole Matlock thing. Where's my, he's patting himself down, where's my pen? I lost my pen. There it is. And then he starts writing down, it's like that. You get forgetful. And that's
why Vodka called everybody dear. She called everybody dear because she
it was
never
easier
remembered
to remember.
Yes. Very well, my dear. They go, oh, you remember me? Of course I remember you.
Of course
sweetheart.
I remember you, pumpkin, boopy.
Yeah,
sugar
she
tits.
just like, and then she walked away one time with Xanis, and he's like, "Do you know who that person is?"
Not a clue.
No idea.
Not a clue. Yeah, I've done that in real life too. By the way, I've just been like,
oh yeah,
man, it is so good to see you. I recognize their face. I'm like, oh, how you been? Yeah, and we'll walk away. I'm like, I'll tell Sib, but I got no idea who that person's name was. I have no fucking idea who they are. I think I went to school with them.
The ones that actually did something devious or they're memorable. But you see so many folks that you run into that person from the thing. Hey, how's it going?
Right. Like, yeah, and it always takes me a little bit. Like if they're like, and if somebody ever sends me something and I'm like, I don't remember who you are exactly, don't be offended. It's literally because I just don't remember almost anything. I'm a mailman. I remember thousands of names, and I don't know most of those. I just guess. I guess through 90% of my job, and I'm just really a good guesser.
I have a built-in excuse because I had the head injury, so I have no short-term memory. So I just say, sorry, there's no way I'm going to remember who you are.
You have a what?
Explains so much, Jazz.
It does. It does. So, and I don't like telling people that, but yeah, that's a lot of times.
I'm pretty sure everybody that's listened to the show has already figured it out.
Shut up.
True that.
We still love you. Did you say you had a second part, Mikey?
That was basically
the both parts. So. Okay. Yeah, but no, yeah, that's that.
Tangent.
Yeah, talk about that head injury again, huh?
Oh, shut up.
But yeah, that's kind of what we mean by maturity, and it's there's different ways to there are ways to do it well, and that it's believable, and then there's the, like I said, we were getting into with the if you just plan it out and you're constantly forcing it, or if you're trying to you create a character that's supposed to be out of the gate mature, which makes sense, there's nothing wrong with that. But maturity is also evolution. The more you evolve, the more, that's just, they kind of can go hand in hand. So even though your character may already be, like Trithalis, Strophe, your Trithalis character, he's a high elf. You would consider him mature, right? Like in the strictest sense of that. But he's not done maturing. You know, he still learns things. He's still having, you know, you basically mature as a human being, or a dark elf, or a high elf, or a dwarf, or whatever. Maybe not a dwarf. Maybe probably not a dwarf. Until the day you die, you're always maturing until, you know, some horrible disease takes your mind and you're no longer able to remember. You know, if you can tie your shoes.
Always.
What's that?
You think always?
Always what?
I think always. I think yeah. Even old, you know, my grandparents, even before they passed away, they were always, you know, changing, maturing, because situations kept happening.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh, that's what
yeah.
I mean,
you never stop maturing, and if you do,
I'm not done.
You're probably in a coma.
Yeah, because as an older person, I'm still finding things that I'm learning. I still learn something every day. That is going to change you as you grow up. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago.
No.
I have a completely different job than I did, and I'm 50. And that's going to be the case when I'm 60 and when I'm 70 and when I'm 80.
You know, and your job can help define you as an individual and mature you. It's the same way with, you know, that is one thing too. Now that you bring that up, Jazz, is even in characters, you know, if you change jobs, or, you know, they try to do something different, that can change a character. You know, you don't always have to, you know, if they go from being that warrior or assassin or something like that, and maybe they retire, maybe they do something else, you know, that can have a huge impact on a character and mature them in different ways. So
yeah,
in the case of my old assassin, he started off like a programmed individual that he couldn't think for himself, and slowly he was starting to think for himself and starting to become who he was supposed to be instead of rather who he was made to be. And that was a fun journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was very old, so it was definitely something that can still happen.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you calling in, Mikey, and it's good to hear from you again, man. And then, by the way, his series, your series, Elder Scrolls, the Elder Scrolls Spotlight. Are there still episodes coming out of that? I've seen one recently.
There are still episodes coming out.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. But rphq.org, or in their YouTube channel, if you look up RPHQ, Mikey's stuff still showing up there where he spotlights different role players in ESO, and it's always a good time. He's probably a smarter guy than we are, but we're not going to let him know that. It's just between me.
I know
me
a couple
and the
shows back, Mikey, we were telling people that if they get contacted by you, that you're cool, and
you're legit.
Do a show.
It's one of the cool kids.
Not just some. Oh,
he's one of the coolest of kids.
I'm totally telling my mom this is going on in the refrigerator. This shit's gonna be awesome. Thank you so much.
You get a gold star. Yeah. So appreciate you calling in, Mikey. You have a good night, man.
Bye.
All right. So with that, actually, since we have another person waiting, we'll go ahead and also I'll drag him down here. We'll also go to Calico, also on our phone lines. So without that. How's it going, Calico? Appreciate you calling in, man.
Doing good so far. How about you guys?
Not too shabby. What you got?
Well, along the lines of you know, the mileage and everything, and it seems to happen a lot with Alanu, is we get a lot of people who have never RP'd a day in their life, and they get curious about it, so they come into the group. And you can see with their first character that you just want to kill them. They come in, big belly badass, and we're going to take everybody out. I'm the most powerful thing on the face of the earth. And you want to
Sorry, caught me in the middle of a drink there.
It's all in the timing.
Yeah, you're not wrong, though. I mean, well, and, you know, everybody starts out new somewhere, but you are kind of right. A lot of the starting points from that are the edgelords. You know, they've seen a lot of anime movies, and of course, everybody wants to work up to that point, like you're saying, but you have to work up to that point, like you're saying. You can't.
Everybody wants to be Gara, Sephiroth, or whoever big baddie you can find.
Right, right. I mean, and who doesn't want to be Sephiroth with those amazing silver locks and the black leather?
Those flowing locks, yes.
I even want to be Sephiroth.
Sephiroth?
Yeah, whatever. That's the fun part, because, you know, they'll finally remove that character. They'll remove that character because obviously the entire group now hates that character, and then they'll bring in another one, and you'll realize that they did grow, they changed. This character is much better than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And this character listens, and not only the character, but the player listens, and you can see that growth on the same level.
Yeah, and you're right. That's a maturity, maturing of the role player themselves. Which, now that you say that, is almost an entire topic we probably should get into as well. Now that you say that, damn it, that's a good one too. But no, you're right, absolutely right, because everybody's starting out in role play. They always start out not, a lot of them start out nervous. There are a few. Usually the ones like you're talking about, they're the ones that aren't nervous when maybe they should be. And like Sib, for example, when she started, she was super nervous, super self-conscious. I know T the Khajiit in the chat, I know when we first role-played with her, she said that she was like super kind of meek and really, really like, am I doing this right? Didn't want, nobody wants to make a fool of themselves around people that know what they're doing, and I get that. But then there's the ones that come in and they're like, Leroy Jenkins, right into the role play without any clue of what the fuck is going on around them.
So true.
So you want to, have a little growth period where you're learning and maturing as a role player, and really, you almost never really stop. Like I still have to check myself constantly not to get pissed off at things and things like that. It's just human emotions. I know we say a lot of this stuff like, hey, you shouldn't mix, and of course you shouldn't mix. But knowing you shouldn't mix and not getting pissed off when someone does something stupid are often two different things, which also comes from maturity, Yeah. So yeah, you've got a real good point there in the difference between a new character that just is like, I'm here to learn, and they're willing to learn, and the guy that's like, I'm, Sephiroth or XX Sephiroth XX, it's like, no,
Lord,
no, you're not. No, you're. This is Final
Everyone
Fantasy.
Goes through it, sadly.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, I feel bad for the Final Fantasy XIV role players, because I'm pretty sure in an upcoming update they're actually going to fight Sephiroth in the Omega fights, because the Omega machine is bringing characters from Final Fantasy 6 and 7 for you to virtually fight against in their storyline thing. And
maybe
pretty
Jenova,
sure it's going towards Sephiroth is the last one.
Maybe
So,
Jenova and Sephiroth can get loose and cause calamity. Calamity!
Well, Final Fantasy XIV's already got enough calamities as it is. That's how they got the Realm Reborn with Bahamut, which fucking amazing video. I still watch that thing from time to time. That's an awesome video. But so you got anything else, Calico?
No, man, that's it.
Nope. Well,
Hi, Calico.
It was short, sweet, but well said, and we appreciate you calling in.
Agreed.
Yes.
Bye,
Thank
honey.
you so much.
Have a good night, Calico. All right, so go ahead and get back into this here. Another thing to do for maturity is when we kind of hit on this with some of the callers, does the character progress? Did they used to be like naive and untrained, or undereducated and uninformed, or are they learning skills, becoming more powerful? That's all stuff that goes into maturing your character. Yeah, I mean, as like your power level isn't necessarily a form of or a standard of maturity or the measuring stick of it, but it kind of goes along. I mean, did you guys say it goes along with that? Just because, I mean, like you guys have all learned different things, and as you've gone, you learn how to change a tire. You learn all these different things, that you might be able to do. Right?
Right.
Clapping. I guess Sib just learned how to clap.
No,
I was pouring water in my cup.
Oh, no.
With my water bottle. Did it sound like a clap?
It sounded like you, and at least this. Now it's not catching up. But at least this time it sounded like an actual clap and not fapping. So that was
Not the
an improvement.
dubious clap.
No
That was
dubious
so
clapping.
bad.
Let's not go back to that. Come on,
I
guys.
just about died.
Let's grow
That
up
was
a little,
not-
okay?
Don't worry, I won't do my cheek noise
let's
that
grow
almost
up a
made
little.
Jazz peed herself
Never.
last time.
Oh God, that was so bad.
But no, I mean, what do you say? Like, going from, and this is obviously if you're starting a character out fresh and not already sort of established pre-beginning.
Well, I mean, that's why a lot of my characters are pretty new at stuff when when I rolled them this time, because I had both Toyana and Vaka, who were very developed prior to even starting, and I really wanted more growth in the character as they progress, because I don't want them to be these old people. Sully's my oldest character. So
Sully's delicious. She's almost as old as Trath, or maybe older. I think she's older.
She's 250-ish, somewhere in there. So she's less than half of Typhon's age, because he's quite a bit older.
Excuse me.
Because he did that Fire Daedra deal. So then he made Sully, so she got that same thing in her blood. So she's older. But I really like her because she's not going to flip out and act like Sia would. Sia is very impulsive. She's still very young. Kia is still pretty young. She has a temper. But Sully is 250 years old, and she just thinks a lot of this is, get off my lawn. All y'all grow up and get away from me. Stop talking.
Quit being a dumbass.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of her whole thing. Yesterday, she was just like, do we need a bench for the children?
Right.
Because she's tired of it. So it causes a nuance, I think, that is a lot of fun to let your characters grow, like both Kia and Sia, and I still wish I hadn't named them so close together.
Right. Well, me too.
Shut up.
So, okay, so
you did it to yourself.
Yes, it's your own fault.
I didn't mean to. It was
what's
not
the benefit of growing? Okay, so there's two ways you obviously create a character. One is that obviously they're not babies, but they're relatively young, or they're just getting ready to start out on their great adventure,
Right.
So you're gonna basically everything the character learns from that point on. It's they know how to obviously maybe not always read, write, maybe hold the pointy end of the sword in the right direction, that kind of thing. Basic
Honestly,
magicka, and maybe less than that. As opposed to starting them from the get-go as they've lived hundreds of years. They already know all this magicka and all this fighting combat stuff from the get-go, and then they mature from that point on. What's the benefit and negative sides of doing of growing the character from basically scratch, for example, as opposed to beginning them already halfway through that journey?
I would say when you start a fresh tune, whatever RP you build up, that becomes your backstory. As opposed to if you have an older tune, you have to create a backstory, then you have to adapt to the new things happening to the dude or the chick, as it were.
It's play style. It's also what you're able to do, how much you're willing to work on your new character. If you're young and you really just can't stand the idea of some old stogie person, then don't roll an older character. If you like the idea of just getting a young character and developing them, then 100%. I really do think it really comes down to what you think you're going to have fun doing. Because if it's not fun, what's the point?
Yeah, that is really what we're here for. Do you finish your point, Strafe?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to start a new tune, you get to create your journey and you get to experience the journey of other people as that character gets older and matures, as opposed to if you have a mid-age tune or a tune that's already seen some stuff, you already have some history. You're just building to it and trying to have the influences around you change that person's character as he goes through these same things.
Yeah. And
so, for instance, Trath and let's say Tarval, because she's young, they go through this dungeon. Well, Trath's going to know, hey, I've been through this A-League crap before. It's just going to be this, and this. I don't believe you. I'm going to run ahead instead. And she gets swapped. And Trath just chuckles, I told you.
Yeah.
And then it's a character building thing.
Yes.
And then she comes back stomping with her beak on the backward. You're despicable,
Yeah, exactly.
But no.
Have fun storming the castle.
You think they could do it? It'd take a miracle. That's one of my favorite movies. But no, that's And there is Yunfei, the chat head, says that that's why I love playing young characters. I get to watch them grow. And Razor's Edge 2K9 maturing through learning reminds me of my character Tina from Final Fantasy XIV in Eorzea Garden. She attended classes and learned new things beyond her Black Mage abilities, and during the exam event, she put those skills to work when she got the bells from her instructor, which was me. I ripped that off from Naruto, but it worked really, really well. But yeah, and that's one of those things. Like that leads to that leads to things like if you've got a character that's still learning and things like that, and your guild or you go to, because there's open role play, at least in ESO, and I think in Final Fantasy XIV, it's probably several games at this point, where they're teaching various skills. Like, your character can learn from that, but if your character already knows anything, you've also basically just boxed yourself away from really having any need. I mean, you could still go to it, but you probably don't learn. Your character doesn't probably learn anything. They just sit there and like, that's correct. And they don't really grow from that. It's like it's like if I went back to first grade right now and I'd be like, I do know what 2 + 3 is. That's correct. It's 6.
There's also the added effect if you are playing the mentor RPer with a young role player character, that yes, you get the opportunity to teach them, but they often will teach them something about the mentor as seen through their eyes, like, oh wow, I've learned something as well. So there's that give and take either way you go.
Yeah, and I had that a lot with, like I said, was saying with Yunfei, because she was Xanus's little charge. He learned as much from her as probably how to laugh again, how to love people, and things like he learned how to live again through her young little eyes as he was training her to beat the shit out of people, because that's what he liked to do. So there are those kinds of things that's the and that's the benefit to having both of those, is having a young new role player and an old one. And with that, we also welcome Kishmas back to the show. Hey, Kishmas.
Hey.
What's up, brother?
Kishmas.
What's going on? You have a good day at work?
Of course.
Nobody cares.
We haven't seen you so long, bro. I don't even recognize you, bro.
I know.
I've been talking this whole time.
I don't want to say anything. Oh yeah, you were muted. I didn't realize you were talking.
Thanks for letting me know, guys.
I didn't hear you.
I didn't know you were talking. I didn't hear you at all.
Last I heard was her on the phone. So, by the way, Kishmas, I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but he actually sounds 1 year more mature than he used to.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I know it happened between our 2 shows now, but happy birthday.
Yep.
Hey, bro, you're 22.
I'm 22 now.
He's 22 now. So, yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it here. And because you're here, too, in honor of Kishmas showing up after work, we're going to bring Saba on our phone lines. Saba, appreciate you calling in. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
Oh, fantastic.
It better be.
I was just listening, and I was like, I don't have any current things to talk about since I don't have as much time to roleplay these days, but I've been thinking about Saba, actually, from EQ.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
Yeah, and when I started roleplaying him, I think
hang up on me now. Do it now. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I think I was 18. I think maybe 19.
You were 19. You were 19 when I dragged you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm 30 now. So it's been a while. But when I started him, he was a one-dimensional, kind of boring character, kind of an asshole. In fact, I remember when I first showed up as him into the Silver Circle Guild Hall, I think it was Rengots that out of character was like, oh no, it wasn't Ren. I already knew him from, it was Greiger. And he was like, I don't like that guy.
He's an idiot.
And remember, your character, when he first came into the guild, got tossed out like 2 weeks later. So.
Yeah. No, he got tossed out immediately.
Was it immediately? Okay.
He was an asshole to Vakarina. And then I think Jazz and I talked out of character for about 10 minutes. I came back, and immediately he had a growing moment of being like, maybe I can knock this on. But the point is, because of that, he ended up getting to learn and grow and gain a lot of ranks and like make friends. And then he met his wife, which that's a whole weird, different story.
Yeah.
Unli is very strange. And he went from this 1D character to like a 3D character. And so, I mean, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but the point is because of that maturity, and also probably because by the time I quit playing, I was in my middle 20s, upper 20s.
Yeah,
I don't know how long we were there.
How much of that had to do with not just your character maturing, but you as well, and learning like the ins and outs of roleplay, like what to do, what not to do? How did that have probably even more of an impact on the maturity of your character than just like the ins and outs of what happened in roleplay?
Yeah, I'd say, looking back on it, it's probably mostly due to the fact that it's, I was 19 and then I was in my 20s, went from college to jobs and, and so on and so forth.
And paying bills and
yeah.
Suddenly you have opinions on things like taxes.
Exactly. And so, but it was just, it was lucky enough that I was able to let him learn so he could go on to end up being the general of the guild and like controlling all this stuff. And also back then I didn't have anything to do, so I just roleplayed all the time.
Right. Yeah, and you can learn really quick when you're in college and things like that. And there's only so much time you can spend studying and doing classes.
Exactly. But yeah, I just wanted to pop in and say it's necessary, because if you just stay a one-dimensional character, it's boring, and people are going to get bored of your character.
And it is absolutely true. But no, all right, cool. I appreciate you calling in, Saba. And
thanks,
Saba.
Buddy.
You have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, here we go. There we go. Helps if I don't try to put him in a voice chat or a text chat when I leave him out of here. So Kishmish, since you had to run late to the party, which won't be happening next week. He'll be here for the entire thing.
Woohoo!
The entire thing. He'll actually be spending some.
That sounds like a threat.
It
that
is.
sounds like
I know.
a threat.
Probably.
We're not even know how to act anymore.
It kind of is just a Jazz, though.
That's right. Don't worry. When we ask what she's doing in roleplay, she'll be first next week too, because she complained about it. So, Kishmis, before we're getting close to closing out, but I want to get your opinion on what it is you think on maturing your character versus, say, like we were saying, a character like, say, my Tarvala, which was, has learned over the last year, as opposed to a character that comes in and already kind of knows it all.
Stage, pretty much. Yeah, I don't think that people should, maybe it's all about personal preference, but I don't think people should really start RP characters already developed fully and just, nothing really to expand on. You really got to put holes and flaws in them and have them develop over time, kind of like what they do in trilogies. Like I'll give you an example. Luke is a good example of maturing characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been using Luke Skywalker, and like Harry Potter is the other one, because he's not the same kid he was in the first two books, as opposed to when he's like one-on-one with Voldemort.
Right. Excuse me.
All right.
But I think Anakin Skywalker is another good example of that.
All right. Well, this conversation was fun.
But no.
I hate sand too, Kishmis. It gets everywhere.
I think
so hard and coarse.
If there's no development
like
of the character, there's really no arc to really stem off of with your character. Like with Regier, he started off, like a big buff. He was basically your average gym bodybuilder. He was really cocky, always was flirting with people even though he didn't know shit. Like, oh yes, I know lots about the sermons.
I banged
guys.
I banged 15 girls last week.
Exactly. Well, he wasn't really like that. He was
not quite like that. Not that bad. He wasn't
bad.
Chad level of bad.
He was definitely not Chad.
All right, good. Whew, I was gonna have to completely rethink what my interactions with him. Which, of course, would be mixing. But if you're a Chad, that's one of the few times you're allowed to actually mix. That's an unwritten rule that I just made up.
I mean, Raj is a Chad in his own way, but Let's
not anymore. He's really more of like the lovable jock, really.
Right.
But even that,
I wouldn't go so far as to call him lovable, but he definitely is interesting.
Maybe to you. Tarvala thinks he's like a brother. She had a small crush on him for a while, so.
Hey, I have a picture of them sitting in a tub
bathtub
together.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they were totally.
Oh, right. I remember that.
I got
to think about it
that
for a second,
picture.
too.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. I think you were showing me something you
need
had
to
made.
start a journal.
Yeah, I was just showing. Literally showing the house, and we just hopped in the tub. Like, yeah, this is where all the magic happens. Gets in. Sib's like, oh, I'm gonna screenshot.
Why is everything so sticky?
I wasn't even there. I couldn't screenshot it.
Yeah, I think it was one of us that screenshotted that. I think you did it just to try to make her jealous.
All right.
Yeah.
Did I succeed?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't take much. I had to sleep on the couch for a week after that. Thanks a lot.
Whatever.
She is that kind of crazy.
Couch surfing award unlocked.
That's right. Hey, it is a damn comfortable couch. It's
I
an
am
honor
that kind of
to sleep on
crazy.
that couch. It is an honor. But yeah, that's a lot of good points on there. Those things that you just said, those are all good things.
Yeah, great things.
They're the best things.
The best things.
The best. Yeah, it's what?
I got it from old guy from Skyrim.
Well, I didn't even have to make fapping noises to make her laugh like that this time.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have some more wine now.
Oh. See, and she's over here acting like, no.
I'm not going to drink more than one glass.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I only have half a glass.
Right.
All I've drank is half a glass so far. Thank you very
it's just
much.
when I joined the channel, she's like, oh, I gotta have more wine to understand this joke.
Yep, that's what happened, Tish.
You're like, I need more booze. Which, by the way, is going to be my Mother's Day gift. Don't forget Mother's Day is coming up in 2 weeks, people.
Is it really?
2 weeks.
Crap.
Love your mother.
I have
You
to
never
get my
call,
mom
you
something.
never write. I may as well be dead. That's probably the way you want me anyway.
You know,
That's my mother's whole phrase right there. If she can put it on a card and send it to me, that's exactly what it would say.
not to be crass, but there are things that you could put on gravestones that are actually pretty funny. And and quote, you probably just wish I was dead on a gravestone would be a pretty good one. One of my favorites I've actually seen in a graveyard, at least on photo, was I told you I was sick.
Yeah,
I think I've told that on the joke.
Really
I think I've told that joke on here before, but yeah. there's a lot of really I'm gonna have to think something and put it in my will to put it on, like, I don't know, like Ready Player 2 or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe I'll have a quote on my tombstone that says someone hit the reset button.
I saw one, just was a photograph, but it said that loading new player or something like that, and then it was like, failure to connect at the bottom.
connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna deliberately break my own gravestone before I die. Have my fortune goes to and have the break off right there.
That's right.
You can have on there. This is not the headstone you're looking for.
Yep, there you go.
I just want them to put fake dates on there, like put from like 1804 to like whenever the day is I die.
I hope I die on like 4/20/2069. So be like, so my gravestone just says nice.
Nice. Oh, there you go. Razor's Edge in the chat says, "Can I get a res?"
Yeah,
that'd be a good one.
Res?
That'd be great. And under that, it needs to say "Sow, please." PLZ. But yeah, there's a few other things here. Oh yeah, for those characters that you create that are already over from the start, even old dogs, like from above, can learn actually new tricks.
Oh yeah.
Or they can grow incredibly stale, and not just to others, but often to the player. And I think we've all seen that as well. People that they already had their character thought out and done, but then they never evolve beyond that. You know, they just stick with your original concept, and that,
or they stay 15 forever,
right.
Or it's important to understand that even if you're old, you're still learning and you're still changing.
Maybe learning more, maybe redeeming yourself for something in the
yeah, like with Vodka, she was redeeming herself. So was Xanis for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
They were both kind of trying. Yeah, they were both trying to redeem themselves of the horrible things that they had done in their youth, and I think that was a really important aspect of the role play.
That's why Ren thought they were both quitters.
Yep, he did, because he was furious that Vodka gave up Ultnaria.
You both have betrayed your people and your heritage. Sacrilege.
Yeah. That's that right there. That pretty much. I know we had a couple other things here, but honestly, I think we already actually covered them. RTP time moves faster, so don't be afraid to take advantage of RP around you. Yeah, waffle back and forth. So yeah, we pretty much covered everything that we really
2-hour pregnancy.
Of course, if you're going to do that, do a 2-hour pregnancy. That is always the best way to do it. And then an hour after that kid, they are dating and already boinking the person that you originally created them for. That's the way to go about that.
Oh, man, no.
All right, so because I think this is fucking hilarious, I also want to say Calico says for a tombstone thing, it's the fucking healer's fault. That'd be a good one on a tombstone. Yeah. And that guy Leza says he's sorry he's not listening. I'm RPing and heavily intoxicated. I just want that to go down in the podcast.
I gave him a beer award.
That's right. Well,
I agree.
He is a raid tier Patreon donor, so you, my friend, can do whatever you want, and you can just listen to the show after the fact when you're, I don't know, lucid, I guess.
Yeah. Also, if you do listen to the podcast, Laza 1932, because he's Australian.
Well, that's right. For beer.
Right.
And
we lost the war against flightless birds.
They really did.
Him and the Truth Bob. They're my favorites. I'm just gonna say that. They're my favorites.
Oh, sorry, Kishmas. You're on the outs.
Oh, whatever. Kishmas knows he's not my favorite.
He just said that they're your favorites. You can't have
favoritism.
Yeah, well,
you should be used to it.
Remember, I'm the commander.
Which, by the way, yeah, that's what have you did?
All right, that's part of the update.
Guys. He's a commander now. He's the head honcho. He's the silver with the black
the plume.
Well, I know that he missed out on us talking about what we RP'd, but
yeah,
the whole RP with Dalatori from last Sunday has morphed and mushroomed into a whole bunch of roleplay with
it. Came to blows, dude.
So yeah,
perfect.
It was fantastic.
In character blows, but it came to blows.
What kind of blows?
Actually,
well, fist blows, you pervert. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and start because we're just going to sit here and basically this right here is what it sounds like when we get off the show and then when we try to figure out what we're going to do next week. So
silence, you're spilling our secrets.
A little behind the scenes stuff there. No. Anybody have any last ditch things to say before we kick this pig and go home?
Please change your character. Don't not mature your character. It gets really boring and really repetitive. And I know a couple people like that, and it's really dumb.
And if you're not, if you don't have the experience, don't go in saying your character is like
1,000 years old.
1,000, yeah. Don't do that.
Or knowledgeable.
Because you're going to get frustrated. The people RPing with you are going to get frustrated, and it's going to end up to probably not ever happening.
Yeah, if you're playing a character that's supposed to be mature and like a scholarly bookworm that knows a lot about the lore of the game, but you yourself don't know jack squat, don't play that character because you have to know. I get it. There's a separation between the person and the character, not when it comes to knowledge.
But if you have no life experience, I don't mean to be mean about this, but you either, I did not know a lot about EQ lore when I made Vodka, and that showed initially before I ever met any of you people. I had to change her several times to get her to fit because I didn't know the lore. It was a learning experience for me because I realized that I really should have played the game more seriously before I made her and learned more about the lore. So when I came to this game, and every other game since, actually, after EQ and then to here, I read everything I can find so that I understand at least a grasp. But there's so much to learn here; it's ridiculous.
It's only 6 games worth of bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
Books
There's
and
just
lore.
so much. I mean, I learned 80% of the lore in Guild Wars 2 in a week.
Yeah,
wasn't hard.
Yeah,
same with a lot of the other games. Same with Tor. I knew enough about Star Wars to be dangerous because of Chattahoochee and a couple of other people like Strafe and others that knew a lot about. And yes, dear, and you knew a lot about Star Wars. You guys helped me, put me in the right path so that I knew what to look up and figure out. So it's really important and vital when you build a character that it's going to fit into the world. Even if you want to play X, Y, and Z, it needs to fit into the world or it's just dumb. And it's irritating and it's only going to cause drama and stress to you. It's not going to be fun. Take the time. And if you really, really, really either don't have the time or the interest or are very, very young, and have never had a job, you've never paid bills, you probably shouldn't be paying somebody that's 200 or more years old.
Darn it.
Just a stab in the dark. Try to stay away from playing characters that are old and wise when you are 18.
Oof. I guess I'll have to leave ESO then.
No. It's not that you can't play the character, but just play the character as a younger person, like a 100-year-old elf instead of a 500-year-old elf.
Don't conflate age with maturity.
I will say, I have never met anybody so young that plays a good older character, Kishmas.
Oh, he does really well.
I will tell you,
Yes.
I have been so impressed with how you play your character.
Until
and
you
me
told
and
me
Ashen have
never
talked
would
about it. Because I'm like, I don't understand how he's able to do that as young as he is. It just is amazing.
Yeah. Whereas other people your age that role play, I'm like, oh my God, would you stop talking?
Yeah.
No, not all of you.
So
just most
kudos.
Because Kishmas is a pro.
But he's also done his research. That helps. I think that's my point. You can do it. You can pull it off. Strafe played a 800-year-old elf. A dark elf who'd been through some pretty terrible things and had done some pretty terrible things. And he was what? You were 20?
I was in my 20s when I played Ren.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were very young, and yet you carried it off. And until you told me, I would never have guessed you were as young as you were. Same with Chattahoochee. I never would have guessed he was the age he was. I was very glad that I checked because, well, reasons. In AOC.
Hey.
Very good that I checked.
The dubious clap. What?
Dubious clap. Dubious clapping.
Yeah. So, but all of you do your research, and that helps. That's what I basically mean. It's not that you can't pull it off, but if you're not willing to do the research in the background, you're just going to fall flat on your face because not only do you not know the lore, you also don't have the maturity yourself to carry off acting like an older person who is wise.
Yeah.
If you're not wise, it's just there's just the oldest rule in the book as a writer is, do you know what it is?
Yeah, sometimes you can't fake it till you make it.
Right. Write what you know. That is the first rule of writing. Write what you know. And if you don't know and you were determined to write about it, like I knew a lot about guns and I know a lot about shooting guns and hunting and things like that, but I didn't know squat about being an assassin or anything like that when I wrote one of my short stories in school. And so I spent probably 4 weeks researching real life assassins, reading some of their books and things like that so that I could get an idea, not just TV, because TV never really gives you a realistic view. Reading about these people and what they do so that I could write that story. And my teacher said she didn't know. She couldn't tell that I didn't know about it because it really felt realistic.
Yeah,
but if I had just walked in and wrote that 25-page story without having done my research, it would have just sounded corny.
You just sound like an idiot.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
Well, but I saw that on an episode of CSI Miami.
Right. I mean, if I had just written about what I know about guns helps when I write, because when I write those kinds of things, I know a lot about guns and hand-to-hand combat and things because I've done those things myself. But as being an assassin, killing someone, I don't have any, thought about it, but I've never actually carried through.
The FBI is knocking on your door right now.
Yeah.
Sergeant Peterson, FBI.
Yeah, so it's really important as a role play person that if you're not willing to do the research, please, for the love of God and all that is holy, just roll a younger tune who's just bebopping around and doesn't give a shit. It's going to be a lot more believable and a lot more for you and for everyone involved.
Burt Macklin, FBI. Love you, Chris Pratt. You're the best. Real quick before we go, Tia actually said that they had a problem with this in TC, which I'm not sure. I guess that's a guild. Lots of people wanting to start their characters at 300-year-old plus magisters, and every time we had a problem where the character ends up struggling to fit into the guild, into the RP in general, and that's exactly you can't start at a maturity level greater than your ability allows,
right. And what you've researched, what you know,
right, and what your lore knowledge lets you,
right, right, what you know,
Telvanni contracts. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know what TC. I'm not good with abbreviations, T. I'm very, 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 very bad with abbreviations. So, all right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead, start the music here. And I don't know. I had a lot of fun. What about everybody else? Have a good time?
Oh yeah, it's a good topic.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm glad I thought of it because I'm amazing, the best.
Yes, dear.
I'm a fantastic, one of the best. I appreciate everybody tuning in, rpmradio.com, and put a /Discord if you want to join our Discord channel. And you too can call in like Calico, Saba, and Mikey did tonight. Get your 2 cents in. We appreciate, we can ramble on forever, trust me, but we also like to hear from you guys.
Yes.
You guys bring a different perspective that maybe we sometimes don't think of. Sometimes you don't, but we get to be reaffirmed and have that that just reformation that we require and that we just thrive on. We have to have that, otherwise we feel bad about ourselves, and you don't want us to feel bad about ourselves. So
we have feelings.
We have feelings. I mean, not very good ones, but they're there. Like, I can feel pain and heat. Not much else. So, with that, appreciate everybody tuning in. Like we've said, if you listen to us on twitch.tv/RPM Radio, go ahead, if you want to, you could subscribe to us. Some of that money goes to us. Patreon.com/RPM Radio. $1, $5, $10, $20. We appreciate whatever you can throw our way. Eventually, we're going to have some stuff in the works that everybody at the $5 and a level will probably be sent something if they want it. But it's going to probably still be a while because we're working on it. And, of course, we are here every Saturday at 7 Central Time. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening. Seriously, we appreciate everybody that joins us. We had a good number of you tonight. One thing I will go ahead and add, get the word out. If you like what we do, you appreciate it, tell your friends, tell your guildmates, role players. If you're on another game outside of ESO or even in ESO and you want to help us get the word out on the show, we'd appreciate it because word of mouth goes so much farther than some random asshole that actually is part of the show saying,
"Hey, well, look at this thing that we tried to do for you guys. You want to listen to it now? Listen, please."
It always sounds desperate and insincere, and I understand that because I think the same thing when I see other people doing it. So if you want to, maybe link our stuff in a thread on your forums or in whatever Discord chat you and your guild are in, we'd appreciate that. So with that, I didn't actually write this out, so I'm going to have to make it up on the fly. Join us next time when we talk about halflings and why their maturity level is that of your basic 4-month-old, because they're stupid and they're creepy and I don't like them and they're dumb. Next time on RPM Radio. Good night, everybody. The thoughts and opinions of those on RPM Radio and her crew are just that and should not be taken as the gospel truth. Music, as always, is provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great rock covers and original music over there.